handful of criminal cops have been caught and are facing justice, but this is the exception, not the norm. What's in the news with stories on TSA bumbling, cops stealing clothes, constitutional abuse, Sessions fighting a kid, and education or else. Also, a brand new Ask Me Anything segment with some awesome questions from you guys, and another new trailer for yet another new podcast from Pax Libertas Productions. This episode is brought to you by Helium, a long-term savings accelerator allowing you to start investing in cryptos without you having to do any of the busy work. Also brought to you by Zencash, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state that is the top of the Politico ranking of the 50 states in the Union for the fourth year in a row, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Revolution needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at the Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 80, Criminal Cops, and it's Wednesday, February 7th, 2018, when there have already been more than 124 people killed by police this year. And the United States debt clock shows us at $20,624,285 million in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. If you've ever seen the movie Training Day, there are two things you come away with. Denzel Washington is an amazing actor, and cops are shitheels for the most part. However, who knew that real-life cops imitated art as much as they do in this instance? 8 members of Baltimore's elite gun trace task force have been accused of a range of organized crime-level charges that range from robbery and extortion to faking evidence, planting drugs, dealing drugs, and other very serious crimes. 6 of these officers, Sergeant Thomas Allers and Wayne Jenkins, and detectives Momodo Gondo, Evodio Hendricks, Maurice Ward, and Jamel Ryam have all pled guilty. 2 detectives, Daniel Herschel and Marcus Taylor, are in federal court. Detective Ward testified that he and his partners were told to carry toy replica and BB guns, quote, in case we accidentally hit somebody or got into a shootout so we could plant them, end quote. The directive allegedly came from the team's sergeant, Wayne Jenkins, the Washington Post reports. Though Ward didn't say whether or not the tactic was ever used, Detective Marcus Taylor, another cop swept up in the scandal, was carrying a fake gun almost identical to his service weapon when he was arrested last year, according to The Sun. The revelation is just one of many egregious claims of abuse that have come out of this sprawling trial that The Sun has called Baltimore's biggest police corruption scandal in memory. And this is Baltimore, where this kind of stuff happens all the time. Prosecutors say the squad, which was tasked with getting illegal guns off the street, abused its power by robbing suspects and innocent people, raiding homes without warrant, and selling confiscated drugs, among other crimes. I mean, this is just like Training Day. But the BB gun testimony is particularly disturbing in light of 12-year-old Tamir Rice's death in 2014, the 13-year-old in Baltimore who was shot twice by cops in 2016 after he allegedly sprinted from them with a replica gun in his hand, and the 86 people fatally shot by police in 2015 and 2016 who were spotted carrying toy guns. Yes, 86. This same squad stopped a drug dealer during a traffic stop and robbed him right there of $6,500. Then they went to the man's home without a warrant and took another $100,000 out of his safe. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins would ask suspected drug dealers, if you could put together a crew of guys and rob the biggest drug dealer in town, who would it be? Well, we know who it is. If you're interested in police targeting regular citizens, then maybe you should read about how Maurice Ward had a technique of driving fast at groups of people, slamming on the brakes, and chasing whoever happened to run. Or maybe how Jenkins believed that all young men with backpacks were dope boys, or people who drove Honda Accords with tinted windows. Now, these are the worst of the worst, but this is just the surface. This is a systematic culture in public policing that we see all over the country, such as in Cleveland, which hired the cop who killed Tamir Rice after he was fired by another police department. Or like the South Carolina state trooper who said he shot a man because he was moving erratically while reaching for his wallet. Or when a paid police informant planted cocaine in a store owner's shop. The culture is widespread throughout the country. As TheRoot.com said, quote, "It's not just Baltimore cops. It's cops. They will shoot you in the face in front of your infant daughter. They will choke you to death for selling cigarettes. They will shoot you in the back for walking away, and they will get away with it so often that we are shocked when they're indicted. That's the real story." And goddamn right it is. Thankfully, in this case, anyway, we're seeing the offending officers, hopefully, potentially face justice. But this is the very small exception to the rule. Most criminal cops continue on, hiding behind that thin blue line of hushed protection from their other officers and moving from department to department. Until we start busting more of these guys and making them face the same music as everyone else, we will continue to be ruled and terrified by them. This was supposedly a nation of laws, not of men. But men with badges have more rights than we do, period. This is not a supposition, it's a fact. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In security theater news, a serial stowaway was arrested for slipping past airport security for the 10th time. The 66-year-old Marilyn Hartman was caught yet again after sneaking through security at Chicago's O'Hare Airport last week without a ticket or passport, but not before she made it all the way to London. Hartman, who lives in Graystake, Illinois, has made a hobby of ducking the TSA. Her arrest last week was at least the 10th time she's been caught trying to slip past airport security without a plane ticket. She was busted for the stunt at least 8 times in 2014. In 2015, she was arrested twice in 2 months at O'Hare and Chicago Midway Airport. And she's also been nabbed in California and Arizona. Sources told CBS Chicago that the most recent security footage shows Hartman wandering around O'Hare for 2 days last week before boarding a British Airways flight on Monday. She managed to evade the gate attendant by blending in with the passengers. Sources did not address how she made it past TSA checkpoints to get to the gate in the first place. Once on the aircraft, she hid in the bathroom, then found an empty seat. The airline warned Heathrow Airport officials that they had a stowaway on the incoming flight. The pesky passenger was sent back to the U.S. when she couldn't produce a passport and was arrested Thursday upon arrival back at O'Hare. A TSA spokesman said that Hartman was screened at the security checkpoint, but managed to get by without a ticket. How is that even possible? According to authorities, it's unclear how she evaded those federal authorities. If this doesn't show you that the TSA is nothing more than a sham, window dressing, pulling the wool over your eyes, then nothing will. A 66-year-old woman has bypassed their security 10 times that they know of. There's no telling how many times she's actually done this without being caught. Either way, we're led to believe that the TSA is actually providing security. It's clear that they are doing nothing of the sort, and they are doing nothing more than abusing civil rights in a theatrical production to keep us all believing that they are actually providing something that they're not. In legalized theft news, police in the Dutch city of Rotterdam have launched a new pilot program which will see them confiscating expensive clothing and jewelry from young people if they look too poor to own the clothes. Officers say the scheme will see them target younger men in designer clothes they seem unlikely to be able to afford legally. If it's not clear how the person paid for it, it's going to be confiscated. The idea is to deter criminality by sending a signal that the men will not be able to hang on to their ill-gotten gains. I guess they better start going everywhere with the receipts for their clothes. Rotterdam Police Chief Frank Powell told Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf, quote, "They are often young men who consider themselves untouchable. We're going to undress them on the street. We regularly take a Rolex from a suspect, clothes rarely, and that is especially a status symbol for these young people. Some young people now walk with jackets of 1,800 pounds. They do not have any income, so the question is how they got there." This trial period is due to start in the Rotterdam West section of the city, and police say that they will target one gang in particular. The scheme comes after a previous pilot, which looked at the expensive cars suspected criminals drove despite not having an income. I mean, look, there's almost no words. I mean, what the actual fuck? What is the most amazing about this is that apparently the Dutch police have so much information on their victims that they know the jobs they hold, the income they make, how much debt they have, and who knows what else in order to make this arbitrary determination. How do they know these folks didn't get the clothing as gifts or save all their money to buy it? This is clearly a massive overreach of power and abuse by authorities. This is scary, but it does make you wonder, how much do they really know about all of us? Imagine if your savings had the power to grow all by itself, without you having to do any busy work. Introducing Helium, a long-term savings accelerator powered by Uphold, an online wallet that lets you easily store your money as dozens of national and cryptocurrencies. Conversion rates between currencies are constantly moving up and down. Helium watches these rates for you so that it can convert your funds when the time is right. By floating into currencies when they're down and floating out when they're up, Helium automatically collects small gains every chance that it gets. Just add funds to Helium from your bank or digital wallet, and you're done. Helium will notify you whenever your account grows, so you can enjoy more of what matters in life. Helium. Let your money move you. Sign up today at thelavaflow.com/savings. Now, I've personally used this product since the beta, and I still use it, and I've seen it work as advertised, or I wouldn't recommend it to you. Join me in accelerating your savings by signing up at thelavaflow.com/savings. In unfit to exist news, Joseph Tagano III was arrested in 2008 and charged with running a marijuana growing operation. Tagano entered a plea of not guilty and insisted that his case move quickly to trial. Instead, he languished in pretrial detention, jail, for nearly 7 years before he finally appeared before a jury, which convicted him in 2015. Why did he sit in jail for 7 years? Because he loudly and repeatedly invoked his Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial. Yep, you heard that right. Since he was invoking his rights, he was forced to undergo 3 separate court-ordered examinations to determine whether he was competent to be tried or not. According to one of the prosecutors involved in this case, quote, Mr. Tagano III had been sort of demanding his speedy trial, which is part of the prompting of the court sending him out for this evaluation. Yes, he was sent to be evaluated because he was asking for a speedy trial. Tagano passed all 3 of those exams with flying colors. And like I said, it was because Tagano kept invoking his rights that he was made to suffer the punishment. There's no other word for it, of being left to rot in a cell without trial for 6 years, 9 months, and 26 days. As the second court observed, Tagano's detention, quote, appears to be the longest ever experienced by a defendant in a speedy trial case in the second court. Unbelievable. If that doesn't violate the Sixth Amendment, then what does? Thankfully, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit dismissed Tagano's indictment with prejudice on the grounds that his oppressive period of pretrial incarceration violated his constitutional right to a speedy trial under the Sixth Amendment. Assistant U.S. Attorney Thomas Dukowicz in the Tagano case said the judge ordered the third competency exam to make sure that Tagano understood the difference between what he potentially looks at as far as conviction, as well as what's being offered by way of his plea. Put more bluntly, in a system that has gutted the right to trial by jury and given vast and virtually unaccountable power to prosecutors, only the crazy would dare to exercise their Sixth Amendment rights, is basically what they're saying. Again, I stand behind my assessment that the Constitution is a useless document that does nothing to prevent abuses, and it's not worth the paper it's printed on. It's a toothless document that was being abused and ignored even before the ink was fully dry. It never accomplished its supposed goal of restricting government, and it never will. One cryptocurrency project that I'm most excited about right now is Zencash, with privacy, anonymity, and security done right. You can read all about Zencash at thelavaflow.com/zen. Now look, I've read a ton of white papers on crypto, and this is the first one I've read that mentioned voluntary and voluntarist not once but 7 times. These are our people, and they are on the right track to mix great technology, excellent marketing, and awesome uses for their product. These guys get it, and they understand what crypto is all about. And you can even get free Zencash right now by going to the Zencash faucet at thelavaflow.com/freezen. Now, this is a project, guys, that I believe in 100%. So much so that I have staked some of my own Zen to run a secure node on their network. So don't miss out on checking out this awesome project at thelavaflow.com/zen. In drug warrior news, Jeff Sessions is in a court battle with a 12-year-old medical marijuana patient with epilepsy, because he's cool like that. Alexis Bortel, 12, was diagnosed with epilepsy in 2013 and has successfully treated her condition with marijuana usage ever since. Now, Bortel will head to court to fight Attorney General Jeff Sessions' crackdown on medical marijuana. We're very optimistic that the case is going to come out the way that it should, which is that the Controlled Substances Act is going to be found unconstitutional, said Bortel's lawyer, Michael Hiller. Arguments will also be made on behalf of several other plaintiffs, including a former professional football player, a veteran, and another child. Bortel had already moved from Texas to Colorado in order to obtain the medical marijuana needed to treat her condition. Due to restrictive laws about traveling with the medicine, Bortel has been unable to leave Colorado. Alexis has tried several different kinds of treatment for her epilepsy before discovering that the medical marijuana she now uses was by far the best option. She has not had a seizure in 3 years. Despite this, the government has continued to maintain that marijuana has no medical use whatsoever. Hiller will attempt to argue that the Controlled Substances Act, under which marijuana is classified as a Schedule I drug, is unconstitutional. He claims that the act violates the fundamental right to travel, as well as the Commerce Clause of the Constitution and the First, Fifth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments. He believes the case may end up winding up in the Supreme Court. Sessions' policy on marijuana has been strict. He has reversed the Cole Memorandum, which encouraged leniency for marijuana users. Other policies that prevented states from creating more marijuana restrictions are also set to expire in the near future. Dean Bortel, the father of Alexis, said, "No one else is living memo to memo or administration to administration. I don't think asking for my daughter to have that long-term plan for her life, I don't think that's asking too much." You know, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll probably keep saying it. Fuck Jeff Sessions in the neck. Look, this is insanity. Here's a child whose quality of life is better because of a natural plant, and he is literally trying to stop her from using it. He is literally trying to make her quality of life less than it is right now, just to prove his authority over you and every aspect of your life. Fuck that noise. In education or else news, students in New Mexico would have to apply to a college or commit to some other postgraduate plan in order to graduate from high school under a bill working its way through the state's legislature. If it were to become law, New Mexico would be the first state in the nation to require its students to spell out what they're doing after high school, as if it's any of the state's fucking business. Jennifer Zenth, director of high school and STEM for the Education Commission of the States, an education policy think tank based in Colorado, said requiring students to do that would be unique in the nation. No other state in the nation has done that. The bill states that high school juniors would have to file a plan showing they're applying for admission to a college, taking steps to enter the military, or preparing for an internship or apprenticeship. The plan would be filed with a high school principal, and the students' parents and guidance counselors would have to sign off on it. Forced education for K-12 is bad enough. But now they want to mandate attempting to move on after primary education? And this is only the start. At some point, if this passes, don't be surprised when they start mandating secondary education. And you know who's going to pay for that, of course, the taxpayers. Hold on to your wallets, folks. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. That time where you get to ask me whatever you want. I'm going to be using this segment every couple of weeks or so to help this show become more interactive and to talk about the topics that you want to hear about. It's easy to ask me a question for this segment. Just send an email to ama@thelavaflow.com. or look out for my periodic post in the Pax Libertas Pro Fans Facebook group. If you're a supporter of this show, then you get first dibs. Your questions will always be answered first, and you will have a Facebook post in the Lava Flow Super Secret Supporters group on Facebook and a post on Patreon. Also, for the second time in a row, I've received a lot more questions than I thought I would, by far, so I'm not going to be able to tackle them all in this episode. Hell, I'm still catching up on ones that I couldn't get to last time. As always, I'm going to hit my supporters' questions first, then the rest. But rest assured, if you didn't hear your question answered this time, I still have it, and I will get to it soon, I promise. My first question comes from supporter Ryan P., who asked a bunch of really thought-out questions. These questions are really a gold mine, so I'm going to milk it for a while and use one of his questions every time I do one of these segments until I have them all answered. Ryan, thanks so much for those amazing questions, and we're going to start with your first one. I deeply sympathize with the anarchist mindset and agree that the only true way to achieve real liberty is to be devoid of government. Forgive my lack of faith, but I often find myself wavering between being very passionate about anarchy in my lifetime and then later thinking of it as just a naive thought experiment. How do you see the practical, peaceful implementation of an America without a government? How does government just go away once the people have removed their consent to be governed? Wow, Ryan, this is a tough one to unpack. First of all, I'm not sure that I see a practical, peaceful implementation of an America without a government. I think it's entirely possible that the first group to try to break away peacefully from the US of A will provoke anger and potential violence from the government of that body. We've seen similar in Catalonia recently, of course, but sadly, I think that will be necessary to pull back the curtain on the fact that government really is nothing more than force. When people begin seeing that more, getting that peek behind the curtain and seeing government for what it really is, it will pave the way for more people to break away from that violence. Eventually, I think it will reach a critical mass. It's my hope anyway. But to be honest, there's no way to forecast this any more than we can forecast what our roads would look like today if the government wasn't holding monopoly on them. Thankfully, I don't have to have all the answers. I only have to hold up a moral ideal of non-initiation of force as high and as proudly as I can. As Gandhi said, they say means are after all means. I would say means are after all everything. As the means, so the end. But just because I think the end may be difficult to achieve, painful, or even damn near impossible, it doesn't mean that I won't continue calling for it. As William Lloyd Garrison said, I am well aware that many object to the severity of my language, but is there not cause for severity? I will be as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. On this subject, I do not wish to think or to speak or to write with moderation. No. Tell a man whose house is on fire to give a moderate alarm. Tell him to moderately rescue his wife from the hands of the ravisher. Tell the mother to gradually extricate her babe from the fire into which it has fallen. But urge me not to use moderation in a cause like the present. I am in earnest. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard. And another of William Lloyd Garrison's quotes that is really perfect here is, urge immediate abolition as earnestly as we may. It will, alas, be gradual abolition in the end. We have never said that slavery would be overthrown by a single blow. That it ought to, we shall always contend. So yes, we may urge complete voluntarism and the end to the government from the top of our lungs, accept gradual reductions, and continue being severe in our language. We will, I truly believe, eventually be heard, just as William Lloyd Garrison was. Ryan, thanks again for your questions. This is number 1 out of your 5, and I'll get to the rest soon, I promise. And now for a bit of a silly question from my good friend Darryl W. Perry. If you were a superhero, what would your superhero name be? What superpowers would you have? And who would be your nemesis and why? Well, I'm not really sure that too many people really want or need to hear the answers to this question, but really quickly, I would name myself Beard Man. My superpower would be destroying statist arguments with my beard tied behind my back, and my nemesis would be smooth face statist. I don't know. Next question is from Buddy P. He asks, at what point is violent revolution acceptable? Now, Buddy, this is a great question, and one that is so hard to answer. The simple answer is that I don't know if it's ever acceptable, except in complete defense. I mean, let's look again at the Gandhi example. In the face of violent oppression and even murder, he still asked his followers to use only non-violent civil disobedience. I highly recommend the website voluntarist.com for information on this, and by extension, my podcast Essential Libertarianism at essentiallibertarianism.com. I've already touched on several episodes on nonviolent action, and coming in a few weeks, I'll begin touching on more of the nonviolence section of voluntarism. But I will say that this is a fairly new revelation for me. If you had asked me a decade ago, or perhaps even sooner, I would have said that we were already at the point that it was time for a violent revolution. I was wrong, and I'm glad that I've realized that, but I'm certainly not saying there may not be a time for it someday. If, for example, New Hampshire decided to secede from the United States, and the U.S. decided to send in tanks and troops, then I believe that would be considered a time that defending ourselves in a violent revolution would be appropriate and acceptable. But I sure hope it never comes to that. Buddy, thanks so much for the question, and I'll see you this weekend. Jason C. asked, when will Bitcoin stop the bleeding? Oh my God, I wish I knew. But, this is impossible to say, and if anyone ever tells you the answer to this question, or they tell you what's going to happen in Bitcoin, run away. Seriously, no one can predict what Bitcoin will do in 2 hours, much less anything else. It's as bad as trying to predict the weather, but with much less data to go off. This is why I always say, only invest money that you can afford to lose in cryptocurrencies. I expect cryptocurrencies to go back up to record highs this year, but it could also drop to zero. Keep in mind that historically, there are always drops in crypto every year in January, and then it goes back up. This does not mean it will happen this time, but personally, I believe it will. Also, keep in mind the price of Bitcoin is still higher than it was back in November. From this time last year, it's still way up. But yes, it has dropped the last few weeks, but it's still very high compared to history. So as far as I'm concerned, cryptos are on a big fire sale right now, and I'm buying as much as I can. This is, of course, not advice. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Your mileage may vary. And the last question I'll touch this week is from Link. She also asked more than one question, so I'll answer one today and, one next time. If you could wave a magic wand and change only one thing on Earth, but it had to be immediate and permanent, what would it be? Would you ever consider altering the will of humanity en masse, like removing the instinct to aggress against non-aggressors? Or is free will sacrosanct? That's a tough question. I'd love to say that I would change the ability for anyone to harm anyone else, but I'm not sure that I would. I do believe in free will, and I believe that without free will, then we're not truly autonomous beings. So I don't think I could do that. But one thing I would do for sure would be to wave a magic wand and push the button, as Rothbard put it. He said, the true test of the radical spirit is the button-pushing test. If we could push the button for instantaneous abolition of unjust invasions of liberty, would we do it? If we would not do it, we could scarcely call ourselves libertarians, and most of us would only do it if primarily guided by a passion for justice. The genuine libertarian, then, is, in all senses of the word, an abolitionist. He would, if he could, abolish instantaneously all invasions of liberty, whether it be in the original coining of the term slavery, or whether it be the manifold other instances of state oppression. He would, In the words of another libertarian in a similar connection, blister my thumb pushing that button. And yes, I would push that button myself, Link, without a second's hesitation, to essentially abolish all existing invasions of liberty, especially government. But I would not end free will. People could attempt to rebuild what was broken, but my hope would be that people would see how amazing true liberty is and work to keep it. Does this make me a radical? Goddamn right. Just ask the person who left me my latest negative Apple review that you're going to hear about later in the show if I'm a radical. Look, thanks everybody for all of these awesome questions. I just love answering these. All of these questions this time were from some of my supporters, but next time I will be getting into questions from non-supporters finally. Thanks so much for all of my questions again, guys. You are the best. You rock. This is a new record for me. For back-to-back weeks, I have a trailer for a new Pax Libertas Productions podcast for you guys. This means that there are now 6 podcasts on the Pax Libertas Productions network. Now, this one is another very unique show that I'm super excited about. It's called Anarcho-Christian, and it will be evaluating the relationship between the Christian and the state. It's being hosted by a guy named Stephen Rose, the guy who's behind the already popular Anarcho-Christian website, Facebook page, and Twitter. He reached out to me a few weeks ago about helping him put together a podcast, and here we are. Now, you guys know that I'm an atheist, but I've really enjoyed the content of his first 2 episodes. This is great stuff for anyone, but especially if you're a Christian. You can check this podcast out at the website anarchochristian.com. Also, make sure to like the Facebook page and the Twitter account for all of his awesome stuff. And if you're interested in starting a podcast on the Pax Libertas Productions network, send me an email with your idea for a liberty niche that you want to fill to roger@paxlibertas.com. That's RODGER at paxlibertas.com. So without further ado, here is the trailer for Anarcho-Christian. Enjoy.
The Anarcho-Christian Podcast, evaluating the relationship between the Christian and the state.
What we're hoping to do is just in small bursts, not anything long or extremely academic, but just for the layman. What is Christian anarchism? We go over teachers from the past, theologians from the past, teachers and theologians and speakers and economists of the present, and just try to expose something that we believe needs more exposure in our country and in our church. If you're here listening now, it's probably because you've noticed that something's just not right, that there is a over-glorification of the state in the modern church today, and it's just not sitting right with you, because there is something wrong. For a lot of Christians, with the way that in the last 150 years, the way that our country has gone, they've really built a dependence on the state. And so this conflation of the state and the church, it even becomes not just scary socially, but also borderline heretical. We are up to the hilt advocates of peace, and we earnestly war against war. I wish that Christian men would insist more and more on the unrighteousness of war. I think the most basic understanding of Christian anarchism is really summed up in a very short phrase that we like to use a lot, and that is, no king but Christ.
Subscribe to our email notifications at anarchochristian.com. Like us on Facebook.com/anarchochristian and follow us on Twitter at anarchoxp. Subscribe to our podcast and YouTube to join us next time as we continue to evaluate the relationship between the Christian and the state. No king but Christ.
This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.
Guys, thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcatcher or check it out at anarchochristian.com. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite audio editor, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/80. I have a new supporter this week. Tyler R. began a Patreon pledge to support the show at $1 per episode. Tyler, that is so awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks to all of my awesome supporters. I am at $256 per episode, or 51.2 of the way towards my next goal of $500. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I will be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know that you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting now. If you want more of the lava flow, exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I have one new Apple Podcast review since the last episode. Dustin Reed had this to say: cringeworthy. Don't waste your time. Paxton is one of the radicals that give libertarians a bad name. I mean, wow. I don't think I've honestly ever been as flattered and honored by a 1-star review in my life. I mean, goddamn right I'm one of the radicals. What's fucking sad is this. Apparently saying that the initiation of force is wrong and immoral, no matter who does it, including the government, is radical. If that's the case, then I wear the name proudly. Look, if you guys have a minute and you want to hear your review on the show, even if it's a 1-star review, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it, including Dustin. Thank you to everyone who has left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. And to all of you who haven't, can you guys please go help me out and leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Also, I've had 2 listeners buy Bitcoin through a Coinbase account using my affiliate link, and they purchased at least $100 in Bitcoin. Remember, if you do this, you and I both get a free $10 in Bitcoin. Thanks to Chris Elm and John C. for doing this and getting us all some free jingle. If you want a free $10 in Bitcoin, go to thelavaflow.com/Coinbase today and sign up for an account and buy at least $100 in Bitcoin. What are you waiting for? Until next time, keep striking the root and being radical.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.